What's up, y'all? Today on Dylan Talks Tone, coming at you from somewhere in Tennessee, we're going to talk guitar cables and hopefully not get rained on. Okay, so the reason we're talking guitar cables today is because pedal board project. So here we have our basic little pedal board. Now you are going to see the video about this on Monday. Unless you are a Patreon member, you can go watch it right now, or a YouTube member. I tell you a little story in that video that I shot a bunch of footage making all these cables and somehow accidentally deleted it all. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about guitar cables, why they're important, and what we need to know, and what makes a good one, and etc. So let's cut this apart and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so hopefully, I think I'm going to end up with a wet butt from this lawn chair or picnic table, and there's water falling out of the trees, so hopefully it won't get too wet. Okay, it's been raining for like 2 days. Let's chat guitar cable. There are differences in qualities of guitar cables. I'm not gonna try to sell you one. We don't sell guitar cables anymore. But why is it important? Well, anytime you have two wires laying next to each other, you have what is called capacitive loss, more or less. Basically what it means is every time there's two cables laying next to each other, or two wires laying next to each other, off-gassing is not the right word, but basically they lose a little bit to each other. And when they lose a little bit to each other, the first thing to go is high frequencies. So the longer a cable is, the more high frequencies you lose. Did you ever watch that video where we took a 500-foot cable and tried to play guitar through it? And it's raining again. Okay, so we're under an awning, so hopefully we'll survive. So what makes a good guitar cable? Let me cut this apart and I'll show you. Alright, so when we look at this guitar cable, we can see on the inside of it, I don't know if you can see that, but we have, well, we'll cut it here in a minute, but we have the outside of the cable, which is this outer jacket, and then we have this braided stuff, which is the ground shield on the outside. Then we have this white foamy stuff, and then we have the center core inside. Now this particular cable has another little component in there I'll show you in a minute. But basically the outside is the ground and the inside is the center conductor. Sometimes, well, in all cables really, the center conductor, when it's carrying the signal, can leak out to the ground and you can lose high frequencies. A good cable is going to do this less, and the way that's measured is by picofarads per foot. So this cable is like 21 picofarads per foot, which is exceptionally low. The lower the better. Most cables you're going to find are going to be in the 30 to 40 range picofarads per foot, which is probably acceptable for most cables. Let's go ahead and cut this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so as we take the jacket off, we will see this braided stuff. So this is the shield. Now here's the thing. In cheap cables, you're just going to see one little wire, or you might just see a couple of strands. In a better cable, you're going to see this braided thing. You know, there are some cables also that are going to have like a foil inside that wraps around the center conductor. The reason I don't like those kind is because the cable's not as flexible. So it's always a balance of proper shielding minus actual usability, or crossed with usability, because the cable has to be able to bend and lay on the ground and stuff. Okay, let's get this shielding out of the way. Alright, now most cables aren't going to have this black stuff in it. You can see that, but there's this black stuff on the outside of the center conductor. That's what makes this cable particularly special. and that's what makes it ultra low capacitance. And this is a conductive layer that shields, again, basically like more shielding. So let's rip that off there. Alright, and that's what most cables are going to have in the middle, is this kind of foam stuff or some sort of like cheap cables. It'll be harder plastic. Let's go ahead and cut that off. Alright, so there you go. So there is your center conductor inside of this foam, inside of the braid, inside of the jacket. And that is the components of a guitar cable. You're going to find cheaper ones, are like I said, are going to have less ground shielding. They're going to be smaller in diameter. The distance from the ground shielding in diameter to the center conductor will be less. It might be looser fitting in here, not as tight. And the count of strands of the wire might be less in either of these. That'll be in a more economical cable. So in order to look for a good guitar cable, those are the things you look for. 95% or better shielding, nice flexibility, and low capacitance per foot, low as possible. Now that's for the guitar cable going from the pedal, the guitar to the pedal board, because you got to remember that a guitar, when it's not active, a passive guitar, is very low voltage and very low current and very easily affected by any kind of additional capacitance or resistance or any kind of loss, because we're not dealing with very much voltage at all, you know, just millivolts coming from your pickups. So anytime we add load, capacitive load, resistance, it robs signal. So it's important that the main cable that goes from your guitar to your pedal board or your guitar to your amp is a good quality cable. Now after that, once we get onto the pedal board, then, like for instance, your first always on pedal. Now I don't have an always on pedal because I need a tuner. I don't have a tuner. Everything's gonna have to get moved over. But like, let's say you have a Boss TU3 tuner here. That has a little preamp in it. That has a buffer in it. So what that means is that the signal, anything after your first always on pedal, is going to have a buffer in it that is going to take away, more or less, that's the easiest way to say it, or mitigate any of that loss through all of these cables. Now if you have all true bypass pedals going all the way through, then the sum of all of this is going to create a loss. But 99% of the time, folks don't usually have all true bypass pedals, because they'll have a tuner in front, they'll have a compressor that they leave always on, again, that acts as a little amp, and it makes it to where you don't have to worry about that loss through the rest of those cables anymore. So my recommendation would be, have a tuner with a buffer in it sitting at the front of your pedal board, like a Boss TU3 for example, that is not true bypass in my opinion. Put that at the front of the pedal board, and then that mitigates all of this. And then once you have a pedal on, like your D&M drive here, or you have your compressor on all the time, then you don't have to worry about line loss after that for about 50 feet or so, because that will mitigate all of that. So I guess the next thing to do would be, let's go inside and we'll solder up a couple of cable ends, and we'll talk about how to actually make a cable. Alright, so let's talk cable making tools as we get going here. Obviously we have our soldering iron, we have our Kester solder, we have a wire stripper, just a cheap wire stripper, cable cutter, and then there are two other items here that are probably optional, but they make it easier if you're going to make a lot of cables. This is actually a coax cutter. This is what you use to cut the cable, to strip the ends of the cable that you for your TV, like a cable TV, but I use it for guitar cable and it's pretty awesome. I'll show you in a minute. And then the other thing I just kind of made up myself is I ordered on Amazon a pedal enclosure with no holes in it, and I drilled in it these 2 holes and just put 2 guitar jacks in it. You could just put this in here and then don't have to fight it. Okay, so first things first, take our cable stripper. This guy right here, make sure he's facing the right way. Put him over the cable, go around 1 time, don't go more than that. Otherwise you'll cut through all your braids. Then you have your braids. Now there's many different ways of doing this. People are going to jump through the internet and say I'm doing it wrong, but I don't care. This is how I do it. I actually take them all and twist them and lay them to the side, just like that. Now, when you do this, you got to make sure that there's no strands that are kind of like straggling behind, okay? Because you'll not have a good cable if you have a straggler. So then we're going to take our stripper, and with you won't have to do this with your cable, but I have to with this. I have to take this black stuff back too. So there we have our cables ready to be tinned. Now what we're going to do, so now we're going to take some solder and we're going to tin the wires like so. Boom. We're going to put it on here. So the reason I like these GLS connectors is because you have an actual ground to solder to. When you have to solder the ground to the actual chassis itself, it's a lot harder. So we're going to solder our ground here, and then we're going to solder our hot here. And the way I do it is I take my ground braids and I solder it to the ground tab. Boom. And then I roll it over and solder the center conductor to the center. And that lays in there just perfect. This goes over this. We take our cap and put it back on. And we have just made a connector on a guitar cable. And of course there's all kinds of other options how to wire up a pedal board. You know, you could get the solderless kits that have the little twisty dudes. I don't really like those because I don't feel like they're as reliable. I know there are a lot of folks that use them because they don't know how to solder. But as you can see, with a couple of cheap tools to make your life a lot easier, maybe a set of helping hands would be a good idea. I'll put some links in the description of this video to a couple of those things that I bought, that I used, it was a few bucks. It wasn't expensive to get me set up, because obviously for a pedal board, you know, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those ends to solder for just these few pedals. You know, of course, the more complicated you get, the more you're going to need. So it will take a little bit of patience and a little bit of learning. Just order some extra cable and try it. Remember to think about the spec of your cable, especially from your guitar to your pedal board, and then make sure that it's going to be durable enough, because as you step on and around and spill beer on and various things like that, it's going to need to be durable. So you want to make sure that your cables are durable, but you also want to make sure that they have a good enough center conductor and decently low enough capacitance. You know, anything under probably 35 picofarads per foot is probably decent enough for most pedal boards. So there you go. If you have any questions about this or anything else, let me know. Put it in the comments. I'll leave links to everything that I used today so that you have kind of an idea what you would need to put this together. And since this is part like 1.5, part 2 comes out in a couple of days. So make sure you check that out as well, because it's kind of a whole series. And as we continue to build this thing, let me know, give me some ideas. Let's get crazy with it. I'm excited about it. It's fun. It's fun. I've done this many times, but never really on the channel. So I'm kind of excited to do this with you. So awesome. Make sure you check out our other videos. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday is my only day off. Holy crap. Yeah, it's busy around here. Plus you saw all the pickups on the table in there that we're making. It's been busy. So yeah, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, hit the join button, and if you want to see all this stuff early, and we have a bunch of other workshop stuff going on, you can also check out Patreon, patreon.com/DylanTalksTone, and follow us on Instagram. Been on Instagram a bunch lately. Yeah, just do all the normal social media things that everybody does. Make sure you subscribe and follow and share and all that. It's free, right? It's free. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in the next one.